today, Tastus Day, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this broadcast as you would, or this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the Australian globalist controlled mass media has gone into hyperdrive. They're very unsettled about, President Trump winning the election, but it seems even more concerned about the way he's going to be dismantling, or at this stage, it seems like dismantling the globalist project. And this it's causing actually panic amongst the media, not only elsewhere in the world, but certainly here in Australia. And one of the main sort of centerpieces of panic, and there's quite a few that they're ginning up here. And it's based on a worst imagined fear, a child imagining there are ghosts under the bed. It's that sort of level of rationale they apply. But just looking at mass migration is certainly been their primary concern over the last at least few days, and there's been a torrent of editorials and so on coming out. Now, these media outlets, and this one in particular I'm thinking of, they're consumed with Trump derangement syndrome. So it doesn't matter what he does or says, they will always put a sinister spin on it and imagine the worst. And they'll always somehow manage to, whatever he does is only 2 steps away from literally Hitler. They always manage to make that connection in some way. And it takes, as you can imagine, some seriously strangled logic. But just the piece that I'm going over here, or it's a few pieces over a few days, but aggregating those pieces, they start from, well, Trump's going to do mass deportations and is going to restrict migration to a more skilled migration, which nobody would say is radical at all. People in the US illegally will be invited to leave. They'll be given a bus ticket or a plane ticket and told to go. And new migrants wanting to come into the United States have to have needed skills within the US economy. I mean, nothing radical there, nothing even slightly radical there, but they paint it and project it as, again, the literally Hitler thing. They don't say why it is, they just assert that it is. And again, use all sorts of strangled processes of logic to get there. Now, they start from the position of, if you're against mass migration, then already you're literally Hitler. So they begin from that point. They don't examine mass migration, say its benefits. They assert that Australia is screaming for people to work. There are so many jobs that can't be filled that mass migration. This is not true. This is an out and out outrageous lie. An outrageous lie. No one's pushing back or questioning it. It's just that they have interviews on current affairs shows and talk fest type shows. And they all just go on the same loop of logic here, that there's millions of jobs unfilled. Now, this again is an outrageous lie. The next step, the next sort of layer they put onto this as to why mass migration has to stay is that there's a vast amount of skilled, highly skilled, very skilled jobs that are also not being filled. This is beyond a lie. Any skilled job in Australia is attracting, even if it's in a regional area, but certainly if it's in the city, any skilled job is attracting, right now at least, hundreds upon hundreds of applicants. So even a regional job for an electronics type technician, a regional job. So this is well over 100 miles outside of any city. Even a regional position is attracting 25 to 30 applicants. And so, and if it's in the city again, there was a vice president of operations and was talking to the CEO a little while ago. They got over 300 applications for that job. So now in Australia, that's a lot. It's different in India where they get 3,000 or 4,000 applications for a job. But in Australia, 300 plus applications is huge. So, somewhere between sort of 10 and 50 is, the lower end and the upper end of a range. And again, skilled jobs, requiring a lot of credentials and experience and so on there, you would get on a relative basis fewer, but even those jobs are attracting decent numbers of applicants. So there's no shortage of applicants. Now you can say there's a shortage of people to work in, say, a one-horse remote town, and that town needs to have an electrician, for example. But that town can't support an electrician because the amount of money that people can pay in those, the amount of work, because the population is small, the amount of work and so on. So it's all very well to say, well, they need an electrician there. Well, they do. They need a whole lot of things there. They need a fully equipped hospital out there. They need lots of stuff, but it's got a very small population. It's in a remote area. So you're not going to get all the services that you would get in a city or a bigger town. So that's not a skills shortage. That's that a little village out in the middle of nowhere can't support that sort of level of service infrastructure. That's the issue. But they fail to mention that in their propaganda pieces and pretend that it's really a skills shortage. And the only way that can be filled is if people are brought in on a mass basis. Now, later on in the article, this particular article, they contradict it and say, well, the real shortage is in areas such as casual workers to deliver pizzas and casual workers to deliver, Amazon deliveries and, that sort of stuff. And these are not skilled jobs. So to try and pass them off as skilled jobs is bullshit. But they contradict themselves there. The jobs that are available are not skilled jobs. The only reason the jobs are empty or it's difficult to fill, I'm not even sure I agree with that, but the reason it's difficult to fill is firstly, the wages are low and the conditions are abysmal. You can be laid off at any tick of the clock. You can just arbitrarily be given more or less hours or more or less work to do. You can't predict the future, as in you can't say, well, next week my income will be X. There's no sort of permanent full-time salaries and benefits that go with it. So, and I see this in the local village. There's at the moment, there's just if I walk down the main street, there's lots of signs up, as there has been previously, saying, they need workers in the takeout chicken shop and the pizza place, all that sort of thing. Now these are casual, entry level wages where they don't give you a roster. They won't guarantee you any hours, and they want you on standby, the whole day. And they'll call 3 or 4 people to come and say, okay, we need you for 4 hours or something like that. Over say a lunchtime or dinner time. Busy time for the takeout chicken shop, and whoever arrives first gets the gig. Now, if you're a couple of minutes later than someone else and you turn up ready for work, they no, don't need you now. Your Billy Bob turned up a moment ago. so you have to then okay, then you go. You don't get paid for coming down there. So the conditions and so on are absolutely diabolical, and nobody wants them. But people, Indians and Pakistanis, folks like that, living in large communes, 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment, they can afford it because when they amortize the cost of living over, 20 of them all working those sort of conditions, then there'll always be enough of them that will get some work to bring the money in the door so they all get by and they communally share the food and this sort of thing. But only people living in those circumstances and conditions can do it. And I see this as I go, say, as I was in the city recently, I noticed walking around, I did a full loop around a large arcade sort of galleria in American, and there wasn't a single shop, as in takeout food and retail store. There wasn't a single shop that had even one white face in it. Everybody was an Asian midget. And with a thick accent. It's not like they were born here or came years ago. They obviously speak English rarely, and they speak their original language and live amongst their own people. They're living in their genetic communes. So this claim that mass migration is needed is simply false. It is not true. It is a lot. Why are they so wedded to it? Why are they so focused on the propaganda and running the scare campaigns that if migration is even reduced, people in care homes will die? People will never get food delivered, or Amazon parcels delivered, or so, that they forget the elephant in the room, that if employment conditions are improved, for those sort of jobs, that people will take those jobs. There's no one's got anything against those jobs, but at the moment, it's also there's a lot of sort of Indian and Chinese mafia and so on are involved in this, where they'll buy the delivery van or the vehicle that's to be used for, say, Amazon deliveries or something like that, or any deliveries, and they'll sort of, if you like, rent or lease it out to the peasants that they brought out through labor hire scams, and so by the time the peasant has paid back the cost of the use of the vehicle and for the fuel and so on, then they're left with a small pittance. So there's a lot of labor hire scams in this area as well. Now I know a guy who he got laid. I mean, he'd be on early 50s, I guess, and he got laid off from his job. So he thought that he could make a go of this delivering parcels for one of those companies. And he was working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and he couldn't make more than an average wage, busting his ass. And so that sort of illustrates that there's no money in it. Again, if you speak English and you know what you do, all that sort of stuff, you tick all the capability boxes, and you work 6 days a week, you still can only make an average wage at best after you've met all the expenses, fuel and so on, wear and tear on the vehicle, and now the articles sort of go on to say that the economy, if there's no one to work in the fast food, take out food places, if there's no one to do deliveries, there's no one to look after the retirees and the old people's homes, that sort of thing, that everything will collapse. The whole economy will disintegrate and fall to pieces, and so on. This is grossly untrue and a grotesque misrepresentation. But again, you see they're determined to protect mass migration and to say that even stopping mass migration will automatically lead to a disaster, and it'll all be literally Hitler and so on. Anybody who is against mass migration, no matter what the reason, by the way, is literally Hitler. So they don't deviate from that sort of script throughout the whole piece. Now, there's other talk in Australia reducing the number of students coming in from overseas. Now, the universities who are running the most bloated cost structures imaginable scream from the high heavens. There was a time when the senior management of universities, their incomes have gone up by 10 to 12 times, and that's before you count in all the benefits. Whilst at the same time, the ordinary plebeians have maybe doubled their income. The average wage has doubled over that time. So the senior management universities are now royalty in terms of the income scale. They're in the top 0.1% of incomes in the country. That's how well paid they are, and I would argue they're more useless now than they've ever been. And nor are they having to work hard or produce a quality product. It's just mass certification type education where you get wealthy kids from overseas, and they come from places where they think by paying for the tuition that you're actually paying for the degree. It's not you're paying to be at a prestigious college and earn a prestigious degree through hard work and study. No. You've paid your $100,000 for the year, and you expect a fucking degree in return. And if there's any quibbling, if you fail my son or fail my children, then I'll go to another university somewhere else in the world. So you give me what the fuck I want, otherwise no. And this is so they're just mass certification factories now for spoiled, Brahmin rich kids from India and China, and Communist Party general kids, China and all that sort of. So they're not educational institutions anymore, and then they just radicalize local low IQ kids with feminist and woke nonsense. So the universities have strayed so far from their mission of education that they've ceased to they've ceased to exist as an educational institution, I would argue. So there's been a lot of pushback on cutting back student numbers, but other things the government's looking at doing is making Australia less attractive for students. So a student coming to Australia can work 20 hours a week, and this is considered to be quite attractive. I believe that they shouldn't be permitted to work all 4 hours a week, or nothing. So because then these students are able to take jobs that otherwise would go to Australian school students. I think the older among us remember the summer holidays, summer vacation jobs, and other school holiday jobs we'd get, or even jobs we'd get, at the local grocery store, pushing a broom or I don't know, doing whatever getting those sort of jobs. And but all those types of jobs now is you're very rarely, around Sydney. Until you get in the far outer suburbs around Sydney, you hardly ever see young white kids doing those jobs. What are they suddenly now? Young white kids, they've all gone away, but instead they're university kids from India and China and so on, Pakistan and the like. So they've got those jobs, which clearly must be a policy of the big supermarket chains to give preference to them. So really, you look at the overall situation with mass migration. Now, coming back to President Trump's platform policies of mass deportation, but particularly what scares, they don't like the mass deportation. What particularly scares them is focusing on skills. That drives them crazy to think that a migration system will be based on skills. And they seem, again, they invoke the literally Hitler situation without explaining how or why. But I just wanted to highlight the amount of propaganda that's doing the rounds that says that any reduction in mass migration will automatically lead to economic Armageddon and a literally Hitler situation. Now all this is quite absurd. But what's the price or cost to the economy, indeed the Western world, by not having jobs that people want? You can make that argument. You can say that all jobs in Australia will only pay $1 a year in salary, and then nobody. Look at all the wow. We can't fill any of these jobs. Oh, hey, we'll have to bring in everybody from India and China and Pakistan and Africa to fill these jobs. No, that's not. You've stopped using market forces. An efficient economy will run on market forces because the market will price in value and price in affordability, return on profit, and the market will. Now, it's not a 100% perfect system 100% of the time, but it is far more efficient than artificially rigging an economy, and that's really what we've got in the West today. The takeout food, care for nursing home care for senior citizens, and all this sort of thing. All of that is existing in an artificial economy that's in effect run by third world mafia, labour hire firms and so on, and it doesn't represent an economy that has within it any value. If proper wages and proper working conditions were applied to all these shops and takeout food stores and so on, that they would either go out of business or they have to change their business model. Now, your business owners I know who say have pizza shops, that sort of thing. They say, well, look, we don't know when it's going to get busy, and we can't predict that. Sometimes Wednesday nights are busy and we sell hundreds and hundreds of pizzas. Other times we don't sell, so we can't give fixed hours to people because we would then be increasing our costs without being able to match those costs to the sales, the sales of pizzas. Now, I do get that. I do understand that. But this idea that the only way we at this shop can survive is if we pay, if we take away all the working conditions and all that sort of stuff from the workers, that's the only way we can survive. Now, that's there are 3 pizza shops or 4 pizza shops competing for business in the local sort of area, and they're all applying the same thing. The reality is there's maybe only 2 pizza shops that could exist in reality, because they're not competing on the quality. All their pizzas are about the same price. They're roughly the same quality. So that the way they're able to compete, they're moving the risk factor onto the employee. So rather than the business taking a risk of having a better product or more affordable product or whatever, they're moving they're just transferring that risk cost onto the employee, and so we'll just take it out of the employee's wages and working conditions, and that's how we'll survive. So it's a very artificial economy, a massive artificial economy now exists all over the Western world, Australia included, and that is encouraged and facilitated and made possible by mass migration of third world peasants. That is the only way it can be done, but it is 100% artificial economy that doesn't represent good value at either end of the scale. And until that comes back in alignment to market capitalism and proper competition, until it comes back in there, then we will live in this artificial economy, and which requires as its to exist the mass migration. And so if mass migration stops, then the artificial economy stops, and it must realign then into proper value of market forces. You've been a taskist today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.